Certainly own one. So
maybe next time. And next week we will also have there will be a guest lecturer, Father Albert, who's down in Cincinnati. He will be here and he will be speaking on the Second Council of Lyon, and hopefully I can get him to put in a little bit about the First Council of Lyon, which is not a major council. And then the Council of Vienne in the 1300s. So today we're going to kind of pick up where we left off last time, and that was in the 12th century. So we saw that with the First and the Second Lateran Council in the 1100s, both of these were called at the end of a period of schism, and Lateran I marked the end of roughly 35 years or so of anti-popes being imposed or by the Holy Roman Emperor, the German king, and in lieu of the rightful claimant. And most of the other kings and princes, Catholic kings and princes in Christendom, never recognized the one that the German emperor put on the throne, or his forces put on the throne. But there was still a schism within the church, and each time a need for healing. So that was with Henry IV at the turn of the 11th to the 12th century, and then his son Henry V, and that would take us up into the 1222, I think, is when those anti-popes ended. And then between Lateran I and Lateran II, there was another schism based on, at this time, due to an influence of an Italian family at the death of a pope, and again, rival claimants, and that schism was healed with the calling of Lateran II. Now, Lateran III seems to replay everything from Lateran I, because again, it's a very powerful Holy Roman Emperor who thinks very highly of himself and his powers, which are at stake here. In March 1152, Frederick was selected as the Holy Roman Emperor, and he was elected by the different little German principalities and duchies, their local lords or princes. Whenever the Holy Roman Emperor would die, they would elect a new one. So they would come together as princes and elect one to be the king of Germany, of the whole area. But to be crowned the Holy Roman Emperor was something the Pope could do. Only the Pope could do. Now the Holy Roman Emperor controlled all of what is now Germany, and well, the borders don't line up perfectly with modern European map, but basically what is Germany today. And it also covered the northern part of Italy. Now, the Holy Roman Emperor governed the two locales differently. So what was in Germany, he was the king over, and he had a much more direct and a much more extensive power, a direct local power. In northern Italy, he was the emperor, but the relations were more distant. It was never understood that he had that same kind of immediate jurisdiction, that immediate being able to dictate everything to the local populace. And this ends up creating some problems. At this time in the 12th century, the 1100s, there is a recovery of knowledge of what happened more and more in the ancient Roman Empire. So during the period often called the Dark Ages, where there is a loss of learning, a loss of education, or fewer and fewer people are educated during that time. The 12th century is a period of growing wealth, growing commerce. The opening of the Crusades actually sets up Latin kingdoms in the Middle East. Trade starts flourishing, incomes start rising, and problems related to this start resurfacing. So the added income allows for a revival of learning on a grander scale. And one of the things that's recovered in that is a knowledge of what the ancient Roman emperors used to do and used to be like. And their power was absolute. And Frederick II liked that. And he wanted a bit of that action himself, that absolute power. Unlimited power necessarily meant that he would be able to dominate the church in all things. Anything that fell in his political domain, he thought he should have final say over that. He has the nickname Barbarossa, or the Redbeard, and I think it's kind of obvious how someone gets a name like that. When Barbarossa moved to limit the autonomy of the Italian city governments and challenged the Pope's right to rule Rome itself, Pope Hadrian IV excommunicated him in 1159. So the little northern Italy governed itself differently than Germany did at this period. And some of them would have city-states with approaching democracy, what approaches democracy, but they were. It wasn't necessarily all the same throughout each one of them, but they took their relative independence and autonomy quite seriously. And when Emperor Frederick, when Barbarossa starts interfering, they band together and formed what was called the Lombard League to challenge him. And he is ruthless with them. At one point, he besieges Milan and razes it to the ground, destroys every building in the town to assert his authority over it. And so, quite ruthless with those that challenged his authority. Now, Hadrian IV died less than a month after he had excommunicated Frederick II. And so, just like his great-grandfather Henry IV, he is going to intervene in a similar manner. Okay? The papacy is open. I'm going to have my candidate come forward and be the new pope. So, Cardinal Octavian tried to prevent the elected pope from accepting the office in the name of the emperor. And he rushed out, so there's the papal conclave where the cardinals are voting. He is kind of representing the emperor above all things. And when he finds out that he has not been elected and a candidate who's not to the emperor's liking has not been elected, he rushes out to the public and declares that he has been elected pope and gives himself the name of Victor IV. And shortly thereafter, the duly elected Pope Alexander III comes out. So again, a confusion, who's the rightful successor. This opens up a schism that will last almost 20 years. So again, most of the followers of Victor IV, the anti-pope, are those who are in the Holy Roman Empire. The princes, the German princes and dukes, and the emperor himself, and not so much those from England, France, Spain, and other parts of the Catholic world at that time. The Italian cities in the north had band together against Barbarossa in 1167, and in a decisive battle on May 29, 1176, they defeated him. The terms of the peace required that Barbarossa recognize Pope Alexander III as the legitimate pope and remove his approval from his anti-pope, and to make peace with the pope. That was one of the terms of the agreement. Barbarossa asked that the pope lift the excommunication and not to invalidate the ordinations that had taken place by the anti-popes during this time. So for a 20-year period, if you're going to say that all of Pope Victor's ordinations were invalid, well, that creates a lot of problems, because 18 years you start to replace bishops in the Holy Roman Empire and priests and so forth. And his successor had been a duly consecrated bishop. So Pope Alexander III called the Third Lateran Council on March 1179 to mark the end of the schism and to pursue reform of order and discipline within the church. So one of the effects of the emperor's disobedience for nearly 20 years is that it sent the signal to the laity and to lesser clergy that there wasn't that big a problem of being disobedient. It's kind of